So with the continuation of Vito versus Asta and Kyoto now finally beginning, we had an interesting reveal for Grey. Now we can finally talk a lot more about this character, as I'm sure a lot of people saw her originally at the very earliest parts of the anime. And there was an interesting change in this episode as we've continued the tradition of the openings are getting updated. We've got another updated opening for Black Clover, and there were some weird parts in this episode, and I know I'm extremely late for this one, and I know I've been quite late for every Black Clover review for the past month and a half, and I do apologize just that the episodes coming out on Tuesday just normally doesn't really work too well like with my schedule at the moment, but like, you know, regardless of what, we still talk to them. I don't give a shit if I'm 5 days late or not talking about this episode, but let's talk about that, and let's talk about with the content they're covering, because how they handled this episode was weird. There was a lot of weird parts to it. There were some really crazy Sakuga moments, pretty much for the most part with Asta and Kyoto throughout this whole episode. And then we had some just weird stuff. Let's just go and cover the opening first. So we've got another opening change now. So this is the same kind of like what happened to opening 3, where there was like a lot more added shading, effects, and animation. So this is one thing I noticed immediately when I was going into it. It's the most notable when you see like the Asta like looking out to the sunlight and seeing like the birds going around. They're completely different shaded. Like when everyone's doing their attacks during the chorus, you know, when it goes, guess who is back? Like, Asta's completely enhanced on there, a lot more. Like, you get to see this really gorgeous effect going on with, definitely with Luck and Magna, like with the, like, electricity and fire. It's barely noticeable with, Finral and Vanessa, like, on there, and, like, just Noelle is covered by more effects at this point. You can barely see it, and plus they finally gave her a little bit of movement when like you see like all of them together staring off Vito, because she was the only one that was like stiff and jagged while everyone else was just kind of like there looking a little weird for the most part. But they've updated that, and there was a few other little tweaks here and there, which was it's nice to show that they are completely updating them when it's like that looks weird or that's like a part odd there, and it's like you can tell, like especially with like I've gone on with these episodes, but you can tell how rushed these episodes are coming out, how forced they are to get them. I know obviously with like productions of like anime episodes, they're normally done like, you know, either weeks to sometimes months in advance with some episodes like on there. So I'm pretty sure like with what parts that we saw, like there were parts in this episode where it's like this was handled by the B team, which was every scene that for the most part wasn't Asta and Kyoto versus Vito fighting. Then they were on there, like when you're dealing with them and all that, like all those moments with like kind of like with Gauche and like Grey and like Charmy, all of those parts on there were a little very stiff compared to like everything that was them fighting. And then you even had moments when like they were just talking to Vito, and the concept of lip syncing wasn't even there. Like they were just there, like sometimes just standing in a corner. That like I think there was one bit that was really bad when he was like talking about despair and everything, and Asta's like pointing his sword at him, and it's a still shot, and he's not even moving his lips. There's not, and it's like a 8-10 second scene where he's just standing there, and I'm like, yeah, they're running. Yeah, these animators, like God bless them. I know, like they're trying their goddamn damnedest here and all that, especially with everything, like all this stuff that's going on with like Period. But like, could it not help just to even have a little 1-2 frame of like just pretending lips moved? But like, this episode was rushed for the most part. I could definitely feel that, and like, again, like weirdly enough, they swapped around the chapters for this. So this the chapter that just followed with Kyoto and Asta fighting, that's the straight up chapter, and then after that we get the Gauche encounter with like Grey and everything. So it's definitely like they swapped around a lot of stuff to kind of make more sense, and they wanted to end more on a cliffhangery note than like the weird little finale that we had with Grey. So let's go and talk about that. As like we see Asta and Kyoto fighting, there was like 2 really just burst of Sakuga kind of moments happening where they just like were dashing around, like splashing and like swinging the swords and going crazy, and they actually got a few little hits in against after like everything that Magna and Luck did. Like you had a nice moment as well with like Yami kind of accepting, saying like you did well, I'm proud of you men, like that, going in, and you get to see like the two, like Asta and Kyoto, syncing with one another, and they kind of realized that they were both kind of holding back on one another. Like noticing that Kyoto was actually had more up his sleeves, and Asta was like, wait, you got an entirely different sword, you're kind of like hindering yourself a little bit. And the two of them, the problem is that they're going against this guy that took out his father, who his father is kind of like the person that's like, holy shit, like that. This is seriously like, this is the point on there where it's like, yeah, he took down the strongest person that is supposedly in this dungeon, and now it's the two of them just trying to hold out their own end. Even with especially this chat, like with the chapters and all that they were covering with this one, even like Vito covered saying, look, I've faced against you twice, and I can already tell what your weakness is. You can't deal with normal physical attacks. That's just not your thing. Your biggest weakness is people that use their magic to enhance their physical strength. Like, and also as well, like just how recklessly you're going in, charging in, and you with this, oh, don't worry, it'll all work out in the end. And that's not the case, as he's literally breaking his freaking arms, like trying to snap them off from this guy. Like, even then, like, Asta is like still like trying to hold on. He's like biting into his like arm, and he's like, I've just got to hold out, and I've just got to try and at least do something. Which this episode ended with Kahona and Noelle both arriving onto the scene. So this, what originally was like technically a 3 versus 1 has now turned into a 4v1, like on there. Now, albeit like some people are out of commission from this side and all that, Aussie being Luck and Magna, and it still like saying that it's like they had a really cool combination attack and they didn't. It's just how their attack was like, it didn't really do anything to them. And it's like, man, after these two and all that were like had this great little spotlight moment sharing between them. So I really did kind of like that little moment that we had from there. Not to mention though, including with this episode, as we were seeing on there, like one thing that I found kind of very interesting was the ghost stuff, because there was a lot of in-canon filler with this one. Like there were, like, I think a good chunk of this episode was focused on him. Like I'm pretty sure more than half the episode was dedicated to Gauch. Like the whole chapter, whereas like we kind of like are in mid-combat in the manga with him fighting this chain guy, and like we didn't even know his power for the most part, like in the manga. So we actually get to see a dedicated time with him, like kind of actually owning this person, whilst like Gray gets involved in this fight, where it's like, oh, I transformed into Gauch and kind of tricked him, and then this involves with them going to find Charmy. Charmy is still asleep, and they unfortunately fall into a trap of this plant guy who traps them around, and they come up with the thinking of like, oh shit, okay, like we're trapped right now. Gray, you need to transform and try and do something with that. And Gray is freaking out because like, no, my transformation is going to come undone. No, I can't deal with this. And he's like, Gray is freaking out, and then decides to cut, like they use the idea of like, you need to transform something into food, which this is apparently a unique thing for Gray, and a lot of transformation magic people, they can only transform themselves, but Gray has the kind of specialty like, like Gray can transform other things around him into different objects. Now, like at the moment and all that, because also you know more things about what Gray can do in the manga, but it's like at the moment it seems like just kind of like illusionary, or like I could just change things like optically like around him, which then gets Charmy to come up, and Charmy fucking annihilates them. It wasn't even a competition. It was like, you touch my food, 1, 2, instant death, like that. It was like, no, not even a competition. I think their part of the episode was definitely the weakest part on there, because the biggest surprise is like Gray's reveal. Like that was the one bit where it's like you get to see what the real Gray looks like, and it is a 24-year-old girl. Like it was that was interesting. Another thing to add as well with like how they kind of address it was like, yeah, a lot of these characters are like actually like into their like early 20s to like some like very late teenagers, like Gauch and Charmy are 19, Gray is 24, like the technical youngest is like Asta and Luck. I think Asta is about 15. I think he's now about 16 or so in the manga. It's like, yeah, no, a lot of these guys are actually like kind of old. Like Vanessa's like in her late 20s, I think. Like Finral's like in his 20s. Like it's I was like, that was kind of a little surprising, like with every one of them and all that, like Grey is kind of one of the oldest, if we're not counting Vanessa in the army in there, and she's just like, she is freaking out, she's like, oh my god, I am so embarrassed, and it's like, I'm sorry, I'm a Grey fan, like, she's cute, like, that's just the way it's right, although, I never give up on my girl Vanessa, I'm just saying, but like her whole little introduction was like that, like I remember laughing at that when I read the manga. It's like, that's a weird little goofy thing for like Grey to have, but sure, why not? It's just that the anime, like it's a shame that the anime opening tells you what Grey looks like, and then also as well with the magazine, the Shonen Jump, they're like, here, this is what Grey looks like, Grey's real form, and it was like, overall this episode had production issues. That was definitely the one where it's like, this was one where it was like, this was really rushed out there, and they had no time to really work on anything. And it's like, I had a look as well when they, like, obviously they've been putting these episodes out on like, when we go and see like Toonami, and it's like, you get to see the dub episodes, which I still always try and go and catch the dub episodes of these shows, because I really do like the dub for Black Clover. I will still say they don't have any time to even tweak those episodes, because it's just like, no, next, and the only time they had to get to update these is for the Blu-ray. And that's the one thing that's a shame is like when you're like with Crunchyroll and also as well Toonami. I know, like, also I think it's an exception when it's they bring out older shows. So I'm very curious for JoJo Part 4. Are they going to be bringing out the Blu-ray versions of those episodes? Like, I'm very curious about that, if they're going to just have the TV run. But Black Clover, like, I've seen the comparisons of like already, like since the official Black Clover episodes are not out yet in the UK and all that. They're out on Crunchyroll, but they're not, the physical version's not out just yet on there, and I'm very excited to pick them up when they finally come out. Definitely is like, you see that it's like Black Clover, I kind of just wish, like, there are some points where it's like, as much as and all that, like, this show has had so many issues with its pacing and all that, and like it's had issues with like production, especially in the like slightly bit in the middle. It was okay during like the Snow Village stuff for the most part. There was one or two things, but definitely I will say that like this, the finale, as like we're seeing the Sakuga moments come out, and then it's like shown together with like some of these parts. It's like they're really trying to build up the last kind of final episodes that we're getting. And it's like, we will, like, it's a sad thing in the industry. It was like, we are here to bring these episodes out because you want to, and it's like, we can't delay them, and it's like, we're just gonna have to work on them on Blu-ray. And it's the problem is, like, you get more rewarded if you're patient, but some of us are like, no, I want to see the next chapter, I want to see the next episode. Like, that's just how it is. And like, I know, again, all that, I hammer it in, always, every time, and all that, but that's because I care about the show, and I care about the manga, and it's like, it could be so much more. Like, we're already seeing, like, it's like, compared to like in the same magazine, we're seeing like how, like, look at how My Hero is doing a lot better when it comes to that, and it's because it's a 24 to 13, and even that, like, some of the latest episodes have been like struggling in some parts on there, and it's like and yet it's still a lot more better handled and all that. And of course that differs with like some of the like really talented animators on there, and you can tell that there are talented animators on both shows and all that. It's just that how they handle it, and then the directing and a bunch of other stuff and all that. Like, anime production is just such a big bag of things that is like, I'm not even going to pretend that I even know half of the stuff going in the industry, because obviously I'm not an animator and I'm not on there, but at the end of the day, I'm someone that critiques like the episodes, and I know what works well with the shows and I know that doesn't, and reading the source material as well, I will say that it has definitely improved now that we're going back to a 2-chapter to 2.5 sometimes on there, but even still it was like, they were stretching the kind of chapter amount that they had with this one, where it was like a good 5 to 8 minutes was dedicated to like some fillery stuff with like Gouch, and I'm like, we need to kind of like speed this up a little bit, like on there and all that, because you can feel it sometimes. But overall, I am still looking forward to the finale, and I'm curious to see what you guys think about the last couple of episodes of Black Clover. But that's all for me. Thanks always for watching, and I'll see you guys though next time.